The man just wanted to take his new wife on their honeymoon, but once they drove into the middle of nowhere, his foot was clearly off the gas pedal, yet the car kept picking up speed. Tom's first instinct was to hit the brakes, but the brakes did not respond, the handbrake was jammed tight. Even the key snapped in half during the panic. As the car started drifting off the road, he could only grip the wheel as hard as he could and force the car back through the bend. Luckily, the car finally started slowing down. It did not crash into the woods, it barely came to a stop on the side of the road. The two had only just caught their breath when Tom opened the hood and realized the car was completely ruined. There was nothing around them for miles, they had barely seen any cars for the past hour. If they wanted help, they had to find a phone first. Sarah noticed a hidden gate in the woods. She thought cutting through it might lead them back to the main road. But when they followed the path to the end, they did not find a road, they found an old house buried deep in the woods. Just then, Tom suddenly heard children inside the house. For them, at that moment, the sound of children actually felt like a sign of safe. Because where there are children, there are usually adults, and that meant they might be able to borrow a phone. Tom quickly rang the doorbell. The woman who answered heard that they needed a phone and immediately invited them inside, but when Sarah casually asked if there was a road on the other side of the house, the woman gave an answer that felt strangely unsettling. On the surface, she sounded helpful, but what she really told them was that from the moment they stepped inside, their way out was already gone. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Ardoy. She said the nearest town was 23 miles away. Repairs and a rental car would both have to wait until tomorrow. She led Sarah over to the fireplace and poured her a glass of homemade wine. She said their vegetables, fruit, and spring water all came from their own land. Sarah thought this was just a self-sufficient family living far from town. But when the woman talked about food, she suddenly added one detail: the children still liked having a little meat. At the time, it sounded like harmless small talk, but later, it becomes clear that the most honest clues in this house were hidden inside the most casual conversations. Sarah casually asked how many children she had. The woman thought for a moment and said about 8. Some were foster children. Some were children from her husband's previous wives. At first, that answer did not seem too strange, but it already made the family's background feel unclear. Not long after that, Tom came back from making the call. The tow truck would not arrive until tomorrow. So the woman naturally offered them the tower room for the night. With no other choice, Tom had to go back to the car to get their luggage. Only then did several children step out from behind the door. Sarah greeted them kindly. But the children only stared at her in silence. They did not react like normal children meeting a stranger. The dark-haired girl stepped forward. She said she would take Sarah to meet her brother, Tibor. Sarah did not think much of it, so she followed her inside. Tibor was sitting in the room, playing the flute. When he saw Sarah come in, he slowly lowered the flute, then he reminded her that it was getting dark outside. Before Sarah could even react, a sharp camera shutter suddenly clicked behind her. The little girl had taken a picture of her, and Tibor was staring straight at her. Sarah turned back in confusion. But the children who had just been around her had all disappeared, only the flute was left in the room. It was lying quietly in its original place. As Sarah walked back, she noticed a photo of a young woman hanging on the hallway wall. The woman in the photo had a quiet smile, but the quieter this house became, the more wrong it felt. A little while later, Sarah was about to go out and look for Tom. Just as she reached the path, she saw Tom sprinting back from the woods. He grabbed Sarah at once and rushed her back into the old house. Only after they got inside did Tom finally speak, still shaken. He said he had seen a monster near the car. The thing was half human and half animal. It had coarse grayish-white fur, its back legs looked like an animal's, but its eyes were yellow, and it had almost lunged at him and bitten him. The woman did not look frightened at all after hearing this. She simply said it must have been a stag. Tom knew it was not a deer. But Sarah also tried to calm him down, so he could only push his doubts aside for the moment. When dinner came, a little girl came over carrying lamb stew. The children sat quietly by the fireplace. Sarah noticed the woman's photo near the table, so she asked Sophie about her mother. That line, "used to be beautiful," made Sarah's smile freeze, because Sophie was not saying her mother had grown old. She was telling her in the calmest voice that the woman in the photo was already gone. Just then, a wolf howl suddenly came from outside. Tom said that was not a dog, but the woman immediately explained it away as a dog barking. Every time she explained something, it felt like she was forcing something abnormal back into the normal world. Then the woman took the couple to the tower room. Before leaving, she made a point of warning them to stay in the room until morning. Because the children liked to wander through the house at night, she was afraid the couple might run into them and get frightened. Not long after that, the woman brought their luggage upstairs. After that, she mentioned that tonight was special for the Ardoy family. Because they had Hungarian blood, they celebrated certain customs that were different from English ones. The woman did not explain what the celebration was. She only reminded them not to leave the room. Because the children would be walking around the house at night, she was afraid the couple might bump into them and be frightened. After the woman left, Tom connected the children wandering at night, the wolf howl outside, and that vague Hungarian celebration. What if tonight was a full moon? After hearing that, Sarah instinctively walked to the window. She wanted to see if there really was a moon outside. But the moment she opened the curtains, what she saw was not moonlight. It was a werewolf crouching outside the window. Tom rushed over to check, but there was nothing outside. At the same time, the door was locked from the outside. Tom decided to climb out the window and take a look. Sarah grabbed him in fear. She begged him not to leave her alone in the room. Tom could only comfort her softly. He said he would be right back. Then he turned and climbed out the window. At that exact moment, the doorknob slowly began to turn. A creature entered the room. The woman and the children stood at the doorway, watching coldly. It was as if this had all been arranged in advance. Tom heard Sarah scream. He hurriedly tried to climb back, but he slipped and fell from the window. When he woke up again, he was already lying in a hospital bed. Tom's first reaction was to ask about the house, the woman, and the monster. But Sarah told him they had only been in a car accident. The car had hit a tree. The old house and the werewolf were just dreams caused by his concussion. Tom almost believed it, but dreams fade over time, and he could still remember every detail. What was even stranger was that Sarah had changed. She was no longer as as gentle and reserved as before. Instead, she became much more forward. She also started cooking steak for him every day. A few weeks later, Sarah told him she was 8 weeks pregnant. Tom should have been happy, but he noticed she was not eating cooked food, she was eating a plate of raw fish. When they talked about baby names, Tom suddenly remembered. The boy from the old house. So he tested her by asking what she thought of the name Tibor. But Sarah looked completely confused after hearing it. She acted as if she had no idea who that was. Later, the doctor told Tom the baby was developing unusually fast. Sarah had also packed her hospital bag far too early. It was as if she already knew she would not be giving birth in a hospital. Sometime later, Tom came home. The house was so quiet that something felt wrong. Sarah was gone. Her packed hospital bag was gone too. At that moment, Tom finally understood. She had gone back to the old house. Meanwhile, Sarah had already walked into that old house. The woman was standing at the door to welcome her. The most terrifying part is that Sarah was not dragged back there. She came back on her own. Tom followed his memory back to the place where they had parked. But no matter how hard he looked, he could not find that path. Then a woodsman appeared. He claimed there was no old house nearby, and no Mrs. Ardoi either. But when Tom asked about werewolf legends, the woodsman mentioned Hungary. He told Tom that wolves are pack animals. An alpha male can have many mates and many offspring. If werewolves really exist, they would keep the same instincts. By day, these children live in a comfortable house and learn their human side. By night, the wolf inside them runs into the forest to hunt sheep. Tom finally understood. Mrs. Ardoi was not their mother. She was only the foster mother raising the werewolf's children. The women in those photos were the mothers brought there one after another to give birth. He demanded to know where those mothers had gone. The woodsman's expression suddenly changed. Tom recognized him too. This man was the werewolf that attacked him that night, and he was the real father of all those children. Tom tried to run, but the man grabbed him. After the axe came down, only one scream was left in the woods. The woman held the baby in her arms. She said with satisfaction that he would be as fine as his father. And Sarah on the bed had her face slowly covered by the children. Then, a new mother's photo was placed on the dresser. Sarah in the photo looked quietly into the camera. Just like the women before her, from a living person, she had become another object inside the old house. Only at the end do we realize that this old house is not just a haunted place, it is a breeding system hidden in the woods. It does not drag people in by force. It first creates an accident, then uses a phone, dinner, and shelter to slowly lower people's guard. Tom always thought he was dealing with one absurd accident. The car losing control, the old house appearing, his wife getting pregnant. Each of these things look like a coincidence on its own. But when those coincidences are connected, they become a carefully carried out hunt. What is even crueler is Sarah's ending. She was not torn apart on the spot. She did not die screaming like a victim in a typical monster movie. She was simply welcomed gently back into the house she gave birth, then her face was covered. In the end, she became a photo on the dresser. That is the coldest part of this episode. A monster does not have to hide only in the woods. It can have a house, it can have dinner, it can have children. It can even have rules that look like a family. Tom thought he was looking for a phone. But from the moment the car stopped, Sarah had already been chosen by this house.